Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And can you hear this? No? Well, that, dear friends, is the sound of the SNP calling for an early general election. Not a dicky bird, not a peep from them. Labour, the Lib Dems, they're all calling for an early election. They want the Conservative Party out. They want to go have this election and take over. But the SNP? Silence. There was silence still as death. Because they can't afford to go on an election just yet. They know they'll get their arses handed to them, number one. And they know, number two, they literally can't afford it. It costs a lot of money doing a campaign. If Sunak called an election in May, which I think is unlikely, it would be ruinous, both in terms of result and in finances to the SNP. Almost makes it worth going, doesn't it? Go early, go strong, and end the SNP. However, I feel personally that it will probably be October. I think they'll want to get the budget out of the way, get that settled in, get the interest rates down a little bit before then, and then go, when people are starting to get a bit more money in their pocket, feeling a bit better, then go to the country in October. That's my betting, that's my reading. But we'll take a look at this story to see why the SNP are so very, very silent. Here goes. So SNP go very quiet all of a sudden as Labour and the Lib Dems call for a spring general election. Well, of course they want it. Labour and the Lib Dems want an early one. They want to hit that ground running. They want to take over. Certainly Labour. But no, nothing from the SNP, because they can't afford it. While a period of silence from the Nats is most welcome, to borrow a famous political expression, they were remarkably slow to join the pile-on, calling for dithering Rishi Sunak to go to the polls in May. But I don't think he'll go in May, he'll go in October. Rishi Sunak said he's working towards a general election in the second half of the year. There we go. He added that voters wouldn't be asked to go to the polls in May because there's lots that I want to be able to get on with. Yes, getting the interest rates down to make people feel a bit better and doing something in the budget that makes people feel a bit better. Basically, that's it. A little bit of a bribe in the budget. That's what you're going to get. The Prime Minister's comments follow weeks of speculation about an early election, possibly on May the 2nd, following a spring budget, which is likely to include a bumper round of tax cuts, although many of them will not apply in Scotland, where the SNP are hiking taxes because, hey, you voted for a party that wants to hike taxes. Not all of you. In fact, most of you didn't. It's just unfortunately enough did. Weird, isn't it? Hey, I want to make everyone poorer. I'll vote SNP. Anyway, although some political observers suspect a double bluff, the news that they will have to wait until the autumn provoked a furious reaction from both Labour and the Lib Dems. Why? He's got no obligation to go until February next year. But curiously, the SNP were uncharacteristically silent about the prospect of the Tories staggering on until October or November. Weird, isn't it? You've now got an SNP government that actually wants the Tories to stay in office as long as possible. Unbelievable. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer, who was trending on Twitter for most of the day, gave a keynote speech on the economy at a factory in Bristol. Afterwards, he told reporters the country is ready for an election. So what is Rishi Sunak hiding? He's basically saying he's going to be squatting for months and months in Downing Street, dithering and delaying. As I say, he's got no obligation. He can go when he wants. Why would he go early? Just to let Labour in a bit earlier? No. We'll wait till October. Thank you. Then Labour can get in, and then we'll at least have Christmas to look forward to as we're sitting there wondering what the hell the future's going to bring. Anyway, using even more ridiculously overblown rhetoric, Lib Dem leader Ed Davey, literally, you couldn't pick Ed Davey out of a crowd, could you? He declared Rishi Sunak has bottled it and is running scared of a May general election. Squatter Sunak, he said, is holed up in Downing Street, desperately clinging on to power rather than facing the verdict of the British people. But what of the SNP? Well, as I said, silence. It's almost as if Humza Yousaf doesn't want a general election on May the 2nd. He can't afford it. He literally cannot afford to have one. After all the opinion polls suggest he's about to lose, I would say, up to 20 MPs, maybe 25, 26. Who knows? Minimum. And he's locked in a two-horse race with Labour over which party will win the most Scottish seats. Guaranteed now. It's more guaranteed it'll be Labour. On social media, some cybernats took exception to the fact that coverage on the BBC and elsewhere didn't include the SNP. But this was because nobody from the party had anything at all to say about election timing. So they're having this, oh, let's go. None of them wanted to be there. None of them wanted to be interviewed. They all know they don't want an election. They want to hang on to the last possible day. They need the money for their pensions, don't they? In fact, most Nat MPs would rather the PM clung on to the last possible moment and delayed the vote until January 2025, because that will give them an extra few months of well-paid job security in London. I promise you, I'm not reading this in advance. This is just one mind, isn't it? Hive mind. I'm reading this as I'm reading it to you. First time. These words. Man. Am I that good? It's unbelievable, isn't it? Anyway, as for Yousaf, well, he knows that a bad night at the polls and his time as party leader would well be over before it's really begun. It's already over. Let's face it, he's not a leader. He's a chairwarmer for Kate Forbes, who apparently is already on manoeuvres, which we know. With Angus Robertson also waiting in the wings. And there can only be one reason why Mary Black is suddenly so eager to rubbish the SNP's cult of personality. After drinking the sturgeon Kool-Aid for so long, she wants a little run at it as well. You think it's bad under Humza Yousaf? Boy, oh boy, would it be entertaining under her. I mean, not good, don't get me wrong, not good, but entertaining. Anyway, it could all be a double bluff, as Sunak has refused to categorically rule out a May election. He told broadcasters on a visit to a youth centre in Mansfield in Notts, so my working assumption is we'll have a general election in the second half of the year, and in the meantime, I've got lots that I want to get on with, he said. Well, good luck with that, Rishi, he said, as this is one guessing game that's only going to get more frenzied and feverish the longer the year goes on. And of course, every day that goes, it just pushes the election back and back and back. And so, you know, I think, I honestly say at the beginning, I think it will be an October election. I think he'll go to the polls then. And I think that's probably his best bet. It gives time any falling interest rates to hit. People start getting the money, easing of bills. People start feeling good, start having a bit of cash in their pocket. That always benefits the Tories. Mean times, hard times, benefits Labour. Anyway, around 30 minutes after the article was published, and around 6 hours after the PM had announced his intention to go to country in autumn, the SNP finally decided what they wanted to say about it. Oh, it's Beryl. Beryl's had a word. Westminster leader Stephen Flynn said, the Tories haven't won an election in Scotland since 1955. So irrespective of whether it's an election in May or in the autumn, we already know that they won't win here. The battle for Scotland will be fought on those who the public believe is best placed to stand up for their interests and their values in Westminster. That means Labour then. Because he's sitting there saying, the Tories haven't won. He's not addressing the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the SNP will get their arses handed to them and it will be Labour in Scotland. Now, another interesting little fact, to finish on, a little tangent out the door, is since 1974, only one Labour leader has won an election, has won a general election. 1974. 50 years. In 50 years, one Labour leader has won a general election. That is an astounding fact. And it means that Keir Starmer is likely to be only the second person in 50 years to win an election for Labour. That is horrendous, isn't it? It's absolutely horrendous. Anyway, I shall stop there. We shall come up, we shall round up, and we shall finish the video when I'm up. But it is just stunning that they go, oh, we don't want an election. They're effectively saying, we don't want an election. We want the Tories to stay in power as long as possible so that we can keep grabbing all that lovely, lovely wages. What a sad bunch. And of course, also, the other thing, just another thing, is that while they've got all those seats at Westminster, they're creaming all that money into the SNP accounts because they're getting that Westminster funding. Without those seats, they get nothing. And of course, if he goes early, that's a lot more time with no money. Oh, man. It's cracking, isn't it? So there you go. The SNP, supporters of the Tories. Coming up finally. Humza Yousaf, champion of the Tories, doing his very best to keep his people in Parliament as long as possible because he needs the money. It's you couldn't make it up, could you? They moan and moan and moan. It's always Westminster's fault. It's always Westminster's fault. We want Labour in because we can work with Labour better. We can get more things with Labour. Okay, let's go to the polls. Don't go to the polls. Don't have an election. Keep them in as long as possible. They haven't got a clue, have they? It's so funny. It's so funny. Who'd have thought it? Who would have thought the SNP were desperate to keep the Tories in power at Westminster? I just love it. I just love it to bits. These people just haven't got it, have they? It's just so entertaining. I can't help myself. I'm grinning. I just love it. It's just so ironic. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button. Do please ring that bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and just keep taking the Kool-Aid. Bye.